Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today I'm going to show you the pickups that I had from the North Miami card show that I attended. I did a video on that, and I just want to tell you a little bit about the card show. It was a pretty good card show. It wasn't very highly attended as much as I would have thought. Most of the dealers there were new. I would say probably 90% new and 10% was vintage. So very few vintage cards there. And the vintage cards that were at the show were mostly very expensive for the most part. I think they were priced fairly high. So I reverted to going to the the books and the dollar boxes and things like that, and was able to do a couple of pickups there. Very inexpensive vintage. First I picked up this Nellie Fox 58 All-Star, pretty good condition. These picked them up what I would call basically the trash bins, or the bins. They throw cards in there and you look through those and you find them for a few dollars. So these were a few dollars. This Nellie Fox 58 All-Star, pretty good condition, just off-centered. Picked that up for a few bucks. And I also picked up this one here. So I got these two for about 20 bucks, both of these. And this was the Harmon Killebrew, second year Harmon Killebrew. Nicely centered, pretty beat up. Has some creases, but it was kind of in the, what I call the trash bin, cards that people really didn't look through too much, and very inexpensive. But it's a second year 1956 Harmon Killebrew, rough shape, but for the money it was cheap enough. I couldn't just pass it up. Picked it up real quick there. So you can see it is beat up, corners are bad, but for the money I just didn't want to leave it there. Picked it up. That's a second year 56 Killebrew. And the only card I really spent any money on was the following one, and this was a Jack Johnson, and I picked this one up. I don't like to talk about price, but it was about 250 bucks, and it was in pretty good condition. And I got it from a dealer that mainly had new cards, but then he had this one there. And Jack Johnson was a big-time heavyweight fighter at the time. He has a record of 72 wins, 11 losses, 11 draws. Was considered one of the was the top fighter in those days. And he was a black fighter. And I picked this up in a 2.5. Like I said, it was in a dealer that mainly had new cards. This was one of the few ones there. I wasn't looking for a Jack Johnson, but kind of got excited about it because I saw James from Elite Hunters picked up also a 1910. He has a 1910 Hasssan Cigarettes Jack Johnson, but he has the side view with the throwing the punch. And I just saw this one. It was a nice looking card. It was nicely centered, and it was in good condition. Really doesn't have any creases or anything other than a little thing right here. But basically, it looked pretty decent to me. And the price was just about right. And since I didn't find any baseball that I wanted, I picked this up to add to my boxing collection. So this one's for James, Elite Hunters. He's a big Jack Johnson fan. And Jack Johnson was the world champion back in the days. Of course, he was a black fighter that people didn't really like him too much. But I will tell you that, looking up a little information on Jack Johnson, he says that Johnson says he remembers growing up with a gang of white boys in which he never felt victimized or excluded. Remembering his childhood, Johnson said, "As I grew up, the white boys were my friends and my pals. I ate with them, played with them, slept at their homes. Their mothers gave me cookies and I ate at their tables. No one ever taught me that white men were superior to me." And he ended up marrying a white woman, And that's where he got in trouble, because he took the white woman across state lines, which at that time was a felony. So he was actually arrested. He was actually thrown in jail. And when he was, let me put it down here so I can just focus a little bit more on. So when he was arrested, he was put on bail. And so it's a 2.5. It's got a rough corner there, a little crease over here, a little bit marked there, but overall nicely centered card. So for a 2.5, I thought it was good. It's a card from 1910, so it's pretty old. And basically, I was talking about him as he was arrested and he was thrown in jail. When he was let out of jail on bail, he escaped and he left the country. He moved to Canada, and he lived in Canada for, I think it was somewhere around 7 or 8 years he lived in Canada to avoid the law, so he wouldn't be thrown back in jail. But when he came back to this country, he was put in jail, and he served at the Leavenworth. He was put in Leavenworth, which was a tough prison back then, and he was in prison for a little while there until he was finally let out. And he did continue to box after that. And so he was a felon his entire career. He basically was a felon until he was pardoned. And so he was thrown in Leavenworth prison in 1920. And then in 2018, he was finally pardoned by President Trump. And in 2016, they tried to pardon him. And they did a petition for Johnson's pardon that was issued by McCain, Senator McCain, King, and Senator Harry Reid, and Congressman Gregory Meeks. And they presented it to President Obama at that time because it was the 70th anniversary of Johnson's death. So they wanted to, at that time, not make him a felon anymore. But unfortunately, President Obama didn't do that. And it continued for a couple more years until finally, after various attempts, President Trump announced that he was considering and he granted a full pardon to Johnson after speaking with the World Boxing Council Committee. He met with Mauricio Suleiman, the WC president, Hector Suleiman, the president of the board. He also met with Sylvester Stallone, with Lennox Lewis, former champion, and who was the current champion at the time, Deontay Wilder. And they were all at the presentation when President Trump finally pardoned Jack Johnson for marrying the white woman. So that's the Jack Johnson card that I picked up at the show. It's a little bit about Jack Johnson. They did make movies about him, so he really became famous. Back in those days, they didn't have any, they had no, they really didn't make any movies until when Jack Johnson actually started fighting. So there are some actual film footage back from 1908 and 1910 all the way up to some of his later fights, where Jack Johnson actually, you could see him fighting from the real movie clips. And they made a lot of movies about Jack Johnson, tons of movies, tons of specials, because he was the first black champion in those days. And here's the back, shows that he was born in Galveston, Texas. He was a big guy, 6 feet, weighed 200 pounds. And these are some of the titles in 1899, where he won and lost some there, no decision. And the only time he was knocked out was in 1901. And of course, this goes up to 1909. Now these cards, they did come in different brands. This is the Hassan Oriental Smoke brand, because they did come in cigarettes. They were cigarette cards. This particular one, factory number 30, 24 District, New York, is not one of the rare cards. There are much rarer versions of the backs. This is one of the more common versions, but again, they do get expensive when you get to the expensive backs. So I just wanted to show you my pickup here of my Jack Johnson Hassan 1910 Jack Johnson Hasssan Cigarettes, a T218 1910 Jack Johnson, the front view card. There's also the side view card that I talked about, and that's him throwing a punch. So this is the front view of the Jack Johnson card. So everyone, and then again, the Killer Brew that I picked up, the second year Killer Brew, beat up, but it was just so cheap I couldn't pass it up. And also the Nelly Fox was also from that same dealer, basically from the, what I call the trash bin. These are cards that were not in anybody's you know, table. They were just in the boxes and bins and stuff like that. So anyway, that's my pickups for the show. Thank you everybody for watching my videos. Please like and subscribe. I'll be releasing some more videos later on this week. I've got a couple of cards that I bought at Love of the Game auction, and I should be receiving those any day now. As soon as I get those, I'll go ahead and do another pickup video on those. So thanks everyone for watching my videos. This is Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Have an awesome day.